Hi, everybody. Matt Lawton here. This is the Astrological Winds channel. I'm going to take a look at the astrological weather report for the week of November 17th through 23rd. And a very, very interesting week here that features a new moon at the critical 29th degree of Scorpio at the same time that Mercury retrograde is making its inferior conjunction to the sun. So that basically means the moon, sun, and Mercury retrograde are all making the same aspects this week throughout the week and are together in this new moon conjunction opposite Uranus and in a grand trine with Jupiter on one side and Neptune and Saturn on the other side. And one of the things I want to stress too is that Mercury, since it's retrograde, is making its second hits to all these outer planets. So this is going to be a repeat of possibly some of the energy you were experiencing in the last week of October. Okay. But before I get into this, the astrological weather, the astrological winds channel, and the weather report that I do for this is a free service, a free video blog that I do on YouTube every week. And if you have a YouTube account and you like what you see, I'd really like you to become a follower. And don't forget to turn on your notifications when you do. And that way you'll know when I post the blog every week. And remember, it's also available on podcast still. It was a podcast for many years before it was a YouTube channel, which has been for about 5 or 6 years now. So it's the same exact audio copy of the video on YouTube that you get. And that way it frees you up that, if you're driving to work or taking a walk, whatever, you can listen to the blog while you're doing something else. And I know our time is valuable these days. And remember too, I have an Instagram page for the Astrological Winds channel too. So if you become a follower of that, you'll also see the link to the YouTube come up in your newsreel and you'll be reminded that way. Also, it's always available on my website, www.astrologicalwinds.com. You see the tab on top with blogs. And if you hit that, not only is this week's blog there, but there's months of blogs from before. If you need to go back and check another one out, they're available. That also has my menu for my professional services. I've been a professional astrologer for over 20 years. After 7 years of training, I'd love to do a reading for you, or if you know someone looking for it, check that all out. I'll go into some more detail of that stuff at the end of the blog. Let's get into this. So today, Monday, if you remember yesterday, and I talked about it in the blog last week, there was a nice sun trine Jupiter, really beautiful sun trine Jupiter that I talked about this week. And that energy continues today because the sun is actually going to trine Saturn exactly today. So that starts this whole grand aspect, this grand trine pattern that we're going to have all week long. The sun, the new moon, and then Mercury retrograde are all exact. So this whole week we have this beautiful grand trine in water to work with. And, the grand trine is the most useful grand aspect there is out there. It's all about, you can see it's a triangle with three equal sides, right? 120 degrees each. And that represents flow and harmony, right? And brings a lot of balance. To top that off, this one with Jupiter and Saturn being involved really are two very opposite types of energies. So it brings in even more balance. Like Jupiter is all about expansion, growth, taking more in, whereas Saturn's all about taking that growth and creating form around it, constricting or restricting or just crystallizing it into a form, right? So they work really well together, especially in a trine or a grand trine. And then the sun represents us. That's our lives. So we can really work well. This grand trine really shows that we can, build some really solid foundations on what we want to expand and grow into, that we can create structure and form around that very easily right now. It's a time where we can bring our bigger visions, our plans for the future, and work on the details right now in the present. And it should be really easy to do that, not only today, but all this week. This is the kind of energy where you can really get into things on a deep level. And I call like really live it, and you can really see the effect that your actions have. You can start to see some results. You can see how it affects your environment. You can see how your energy affects other people around you and how they react to that. And you can really like channel and focus this energy of your bigger vision with this into what you want to achieve. And part of it is just when we're living it like that, we're learning so much from just the experience, right? And that is what helps solidify structure in your life. That structure can even be something abstract. That is what is bringing growth and expansion that has value because it lasts and it's on a practical level. So there's this much greater balance going on between the expansion and growth that we want and the discipline we need to go and get it. So it's also a great time to make plans, to organize things very thoroughly, a great time to learn more about things you already have a basic knowledge of, and especially through other people, you know, um, you know, um, definitely like a time where you can get benefits from them and you can give benefits to them. So there's a real nice give and take energy with this. It's very efficient. It knows exactly what it needs in each moment. I really, really like that. And to top that off, like I said, the beginning, Mercury retrograde now is going to repeat all the aspects it had at the end of October. And so it's going to go backwards. So the first one it's doing is on Monday today, where it sextiles Pluto again. And I think this can really help with this grand trine. It can work in unison with the grand trine. With this, I said it before, you can really see the cogs in the machine with this Mercury Pluto energy and gain some really deep knowledge by just seeing that and then being able to use it. So, this can help you find answers once again for what you're needing for right now, for what you're trying to build up with that grand trine. And what it does too is it really gives you such a deep insight and knowledge that you can be really self assured that you have the right answer for yourself, and that no one's going to convince you otherwise. And if anything, you can be very convincing to others that you have something helpful toward them. So once again, it has a lot to do with learning, taking you to new depths that you haven't been before. Now, Tuesday is the day when Mercury retrograde goes back into Scorpio, and it will stay in Scorpio for the rest of the retrograde period. And I think this is really, really fitting in my Mercury retrograde internalizes the mind, and so does Mercury Scorpio. And do a very kind of deep inner search with this energy. We can really look deeply into our own minds, into our own psyche, and also into the minds of others. Like I said, when it first went into Scorpio last month, this can give off a secretive kind of vibe or energy, right? So there's sometimes things about like, oh, can I trust people? Because there's a lot of internal chewing going on, is what's going on. But it's definitely to a time when our feelings can be influenced, can influence our thoughts. Mercury is our mind, and Scorpio's got such deep emotions that those emotions can really influence our thoughts. But it also gives a very sharp mind, though, and literally can get like almost cynical by what it's seeing or sarcastic in a way. But for the most part, especially combined with the Mercury retrograde, it's going to keep us pretty quiet, and we're going to be looking over things deeply inside of ourselves, like a lot of deep self talk, a lot of deep self analysis. And I think the problem with Mercury retrograde, and this can maybe, I mean, Mercury and Scorpio, and this can maybe help us during this period, is, we could see where we're just repeating the same deep emotional and intellectual grooves that are rooted in the past, and how that can shut down like creative solutions because our perspective has been too narrowed. It's like, gotten, stale kind of. And that's, kind of an influence that's still coming up out of our subconscious. And then Wednesday was when Mercury retrograde will continue that last week of October with its opposition to Uranus and trine to Neptune being exact. And just like I said back then, right now I think, our ideals are definitely stimulating a lot of creativity inside of us. There's a lot of imaginative things going on, a lot of inspiring things. There's a sensitivity to the world around us that we're picking up. But then those ideals, when they combine with the Mercury opposite Uranus, can make conversations, because that's wanting to connect with others. The opposition makes conversations go off on these really wild tangents about dreams and fantasies and visions and insights, but a lot of them can be really disconnected from reality, And not only that, the mind is also under this influence, the Uranus and Neptune together on Mercury is picking up communications on other levels too. That levels that are nonverbal. So we're being stimulated on all kinds of levels. A lot of intuition coming in, that can help us feel our way through. But there's this air of like mysticism, spirituality, the occult, art, technology, all things that can help us expand our minds into new directions. The problem is there's so much of it coming in right now that it's hard to get a deep grasp on any of it. And if anything, it can like scatter us out or even make us confused in our thinking at times. But there are some brilliant insights in there. And the question for us is which ones are the valuable ones? But this is definitely a time where we should be once again seeking out new experiences, new knowledge, because we do have a very open mind, but it's not a very disciplined mind. And it can definitely get sloppy, especially with details that can play into the Mercury retrograde communication issues, disinformation issues. So I really think what would be great to do with these aspects during Mercury retrograde is to actually contemplate which of these ideas and insights are actually really valuable right now. That's what we really need to do right now. I mean, to me, that's the most important thing when we're looking at this. So, to me, it's like once again pushing us right in that direction, and it's putting us right to where the actual new moon is now. And that new moon, like I told you guys before, in Scorpio is on the exact same day that the sun is also conjunct Mercury retrograde, doing what we call their inferior conjunction with one another. That's what we call that. So this is going to play right into that energy once again. And so it's a new moon, right? It's something that we're starting up that's new, and we're trying to get some new ideas. So what we want to do first off in your chart, you want to look to where 29 degrees of Scorpio is. And whatever house that is in, that's the house that you're going to see this new moon most likely affecting you the most, right? And so, what when you look at a new moon, it's like what? A new start. It's the sun and moon together. It's the time to plant new seeds. And it's at this critical 29th degree. And I've said this a lot before. When things are at a critical 29th degree, it's something about like, okay, I need to make some changes right now, or I'm going to get stuck here where I am right now, and I'm going to have to just keep repeating the same patterns over and over again until I learn a lesson. So, I mean, this is like some really intense energy to have to deal with the new moon. And so what does that Scorpio new moon want? It wants a deep emotional connection. That's what it really wants. It wants to go to a very deep place. And at the very least, the energy, the emotion of that is going to be profound, if not dramatic. There's going to be a lot of intense energy around this new moon, and we may find ourselves in some kind of crisis, emotional crisis that's going to affect us, the way we feel. And I think a lot of it is because people are feeling a lot of stress from things that are changing rapidly. There may be feeling grief. There may be issues to do with death and sexuality, survival issues, love hate issues, possession and obsession issues. There's just a lot of intense passion that goes through us with a Scorpio new moon. And what we may try to do, therefore, is try to control others, especially emotionally. We can try to manipulate others. So that can bring a lot of drama up in relationships, make people, betrayal is a triggering word for Scorpio. And if we're feeling that, we can get very, very, very manipulative and obsessed and kind of like that. But, Scorpio definitely is very protective of its loved ones. But life is very, it shows that life is very, very complicated right now, and really like a real need to retreat deep within. There can be a lot of intense negative type of emotions that we're trying to process right now. And once again, a lot of times, especially Mercury retrograde, Mercury in Scorpio, now the new moon in Scorpio too, people can be very sensitive and get very quiet, get very wrapped up inside in their own emotions, but you can feel that intensity coming off of them, right? And that 29th degree is saying, yeah, it's like, a time where we really are recognizing that we've, been brought to the end of where we want to go with this. And we really understand and see some of the subconscious emotions that are driving this energy. And that we really know now, like, like I said, if we don't find a new way to deal with it under the new moon, then we're going to be doomed to repeating this over and over and over again. And the opposition to Uranus, with it retrograde at the last degree of Taurus, shows once again the instability with our security, with the things we need, the assets, the things we need to take care of ourselves physically, can be driving a lot of the intense emotions of this. It's easy with the moon, sun, and Mercury opposite Uranus for our emotions to get us really off course, right? To push us way out of line. And we may, and we're trying to seek out something new. So that's where this can help us. It can help us break away from things that are having us stuck and not finding the ability to tap into some creative way of doing that. But it can really shake up relationships because it's an opposition. We may rebel against people that are close to us, or people that we feel are restricting us. It can be, we can feel, push a lot of, chaotic energy for them that can be very shocking, can be very upsetting. And we may have that happen to us too. The people who are closest to us we may end up getting in battles with one another because we're projecting those energies out, this uneasiness out on one another. But we're really, this shows that we're really looking for a new download into the system, that we're really trying, to get some new energy in there. But if we don't, it can be very difficult to get along with others. We can get very impulsive, overreact, set ourselves up for like some really upsetting events. But then that's when the grand trine can kick in again and be very helpful in sorting this out. Jupiter in Cancer is very strong, it's exalted there. Neptune is also strong in Pisces, a sign that it's very much has a lot of in common with. And I think, the two of them together can give a really positive attitude. about things. It can help people just kind of like, hey, I can chill out, kind of look at this from a different perspective. Like I can be supportive of people who are in need of help. And then that creates a feedback loop where I get support from them also. And it also shows that we do have a general concern with society itself, a lot of us, and helping to try to reform that. We can see how it's hurting us and other people in general. And once again, it's our ideals that are really driving the energy behind this. But what's great is we have Saturn to help us out with this one, where it will really help us ground them in, bring discipline in, be able to keep the emotions under control for a lot of this, and be able to be useful. Take these ideas that Jupiter and Neptune are giving us and make them useful, put them to work somehow, and just give them a practical use. And the Scorpio energy shows too, with the Saturn and Scorpio, both of them, that we can tap in to a lot of wisdom, things that we've learned from the past, and help us now in the present in practical ways. But I really think this new moon is going to make a lot of people feel like right now I've reached a point where I want to make changes. I want to move forward. And they're going to look inside themselves first in order to do that and see what they can bring to the outside. It's interesting too because the ruler of the new moon is Mars in Sagittarius, which is once again, yes, bring in change. I want to expand, just like the Jupiter and Neptune. I'm ready to do this. I'm willing to take action. I want to do this. I'm very excited to do it. Even I want to broaden my horizons. I want to bring in stuff, and I'm willing to put in the work to do that. And it's interesting too to note that Mars is actually square the nodal axis during this, so that shows we're at an in between point of the past and present, and it is a stress point. And we do feel like we need to take action to move away from a place where the South Node in Virgo is like where we're stuck in deep grooves of judgment that are narrowing our minds so much that we can't see other solutions. So the North Node in Pisces, same sign that Neptune's in, very similar to Jupiter again, is saying, yes, bring in the greater vision. Bring in that what you want to see in the future. That's where we want to move towards, something different, something that's more creative, something that's more expansive, open, tolerant. And I think it's so interesting to note that it's also the exact second hit of Uranus sextile Neptune, a very collective background aspect that's been running all year, that's trying to steer the collective to get behind our beliefs and concerns and integrate them into society. Literally, what I see as an update or an upgrade of the consciousness of the collective going on into something new, that we can break away from what we're stuck on. And to me, that shows that consciousness is evolving. No matter what we see going on the outside world, that consciousness is evolving behind all this stuff, and that we can strengthen the opportunity of taking this energy to use to transform things to these higher goals and ideals. It's really interesting too, just on a side note, that Mercury retrograde starting in Sagittarius, all those big ideas that weren't well thought out, right? How they're all kind of collapsing, even in society now, the way things have been handled the past year, all kind of folding in. And even the stuff in Scorpio, a lot of secretive behavior being exposed during the Mercury retrograde, too. So like on a collective level, we can see this playing out where a lot of the big ideas politically, socially, culturally of the last year, they're not working. They were not well thought out. The details were not well thought out. And a lot of the stuff that people were trying to keep hidden is coming up to the surface now. Very interesting, right? Okay. And then Friday is the day the sun goes into Sagittarius. So that it means for the next month, we've got this fire sign, very extroverted sign that really wants to enjoy life, really is very high spirited, enthusiastic, wants to take more in, wants to go out to the horizon and take more in. A great time to be involved with physical things like sports, athletics, outdoor adventures, things like that. This is a freedom seeking, independent energy, and it not only wants that for itself, but it's willing to give it to others too. It taps into a very youthful, exuberant, open, extroverted energy, and is very friendly towards others, especially on the intellectual level. Doesn't want to get involved in deep emotional stuff like Scorpio, but it's also a time when we're really seeking out knowledge to broaden our knowledge base, especially what we already have. And a lot of times it shows us how life works in a greater scale. And so like we're really will seek out exposure to new ideas through other cultures, through other people. Some of the issues with it is, once again, it's that energy of wanting, can be very sloppy with the details, jumps to conclusions, tells big fish stories, it can be tactless at times because we're too blunt with our words, can be flippant with our attitude at times, but for the most part gives off a very cheerful, friendly vibe. Okay, and then what I want to mention then is that Saturday and Sunday, Mercury retrograde will then be exact in the grand trine with Saturn and Jupiter. So continuing that same energy all week, very valuable to access all week. And then Sunday, the week finishes with a Sun sextile Pluto, which shows that we've had opportunities to reform a lot of the circumstances in our lives this week, and that we can clear out a lot of the debris. A time where we can work well with groups and others and get a lot done, move forward, a lot of energy. A time when we can really look deeply into ourselves and be able to transform a lot. And I think that just really ties up the whole week. I want to just, reiterate the point though. All this energy is retrograde. So a lot of this is just stuff we're still chewing out inside. That 29th degree is saying we have to make the change inside with our attitudes and beliefs, or we're not going to be able to make the changes outside in our personal lives or in society or in collective. So this is our chance to really do that while all these planets are retrograde. And it also shows that, yes, we are seeding these things now, but we're not, retrograde means we're not going to see the results coming up right away, even after Mercury turns direct. It might be things like, oh, things we seeded now we may not start to see them solidify in reality until several months down the road. But yeah, this I think is a really valuable week, you guys, to work with this energy, to know this energy, because if you don't, it's just so easy to fall into those same old ruts and never think there's a way out of it. And this shows that, yeah, if you can transform a lot of those old attitudes, see where they're coming from, and then break away from them, that can allow the winged horse, the Pegasus, to come in and bring in creative transformation to your mind, and then start to find new ways to do things that can really help bring transformation, not only to ourselves, but to our society and collective. I think we really have reached such a critical point, and the Mercury retrograde really helps us contemplate all this stuff. And we have this beautiful grand trine to help us out right now. So I think it's a valuable, valuable, valuable week to work with this energy all week. And it will help bring some form and structure in the future for you that, feels like it is appealing to things that you wanted to see ideally. So, all right, that's what I got for this week. Next week, Venus has got a journey going on. It's going to go into Sagittarius. Mercury will be going direct by the end of the week, too. So we'll get out of that. Saturn's actually going to go direct, too. So that'll be a lot of changes. And, I may actually do the monthly for December next week, too, if I have the time. So thanks again for tuning in. This is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. Please, please, please pass the link along, even if you've done it before. And if you'd like to give a currency donation, My Venmo is at Matthew with two T's, hyphen in the middle, Lawton, Lauten. Cash App, $ Matthew Lawton, all one word. Even $5 helps me out. Best way to support me is I am a professional astrologer, been one for over 20 years, 7 years of training after 10 years of self study, been in astrology 35 years, have had so many clients, would love for you to get your reading done professionally. It's much different than getting a computer reading or looking at a book or trying to figure it out with a friend. It's something worth investing in for yourself. You have it your whole life. You never get away from your chart. So you want to understand that. And then every year around your birthday, get a predictive reading for the next year so that you know the energy of the next year. Just like I do this weekly for everybody, I do a yearly for you. And if you do it in your birthday month, I give you 10% off. I and my prices are there. If you can afford half up and make payments on the rest, I will work with you on that. If you can't afford it all right away, and I do all kinds of other charts too: relationship, children's, elections, fixed stars, relocation, all kinds of stuff. So check the website out, and I will see you guys all next week. And we'll take a look at Venus's journey next week and those two planets going direct. And like I said, good chance we'll take a look at December too in a broader stroke. This is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel signing off.